everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 4 of Hazbin Hotel in my monthly journey to get through the Hazbin Hotel series, or at least until I get to 10,000 subscribers, and then I'll finish the series. But I'm really close, so maybe after this episode it will happen. Who knows? But I'm really enjoying this series so far. I give this series a lot of praise. I feel it's more common in Western animated series that I've noticed where they make them full-blown musicals. Like, and I say full-blown musical in the fact that this series has like a song each episode at least. So in the case of last episode, it was 2 songs. We got 2 duets, which was a lot of fun. But you know, in anime, you don't see that nearly as often. So it is kind of cool that Western animation I've seen Western animation that has not been musical based, but I do appreciate that this series is a musical. And I've seen some other Western cartoons that focus on a more musical angle and have at least a song each episode. So that's a lot of fun. I like that. I like that a lot. But yeah, so we still have a lot of mystery surrounding what's going to be happening. We just found out last episode the demon that did in fact kill the angel. So we got that piece of information. And apparently the only one that truly knows is our dear friend Zestial, who's so cool, and then Alistair, of course. And Alistair would really like to keep that secret and have that card close to his own chest so he can play it whenever he wants to. But the egg that works for Serpentius just happened to tell Serpentius, but Serpentius thought he was just joking. So he was just like, whatever, not a big deal. So, yeah, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, Charlie's still trying to rehabilitate the demons. Serpentius is like her big project. And everything else is just going according to plan. But the angels led by Adam could come in 6 months instead of the traditional year. So there's like a ticking time bomb element going on. And we still have a lot of pieces of the puzzle that haven't been put together or solved. Is Adam going to figure out which demon killed the angel? What's his retaliation going to be? Where this episode will mark the halfway point of season 1. So I'm pretty excited. The halfway point of season 1, it's only an 8-episode season. So I'm really excited at this point. Usually around the halfway mark of a season, you've set up your characters, you've set up your stakes, and now you start going into the halfway mark being like, okay, well, what's going to be our big obstacle? What are we going to have to do? And what are we working towards? So fun times, but I'm super excited, y'all. I hope you all are as well, to dive into this episode and just see what we get. So we're not going to waste any time. We are going to dive right into episode 4 of Hazbin Hotel, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, well, that was definitely the best episode so far. Definitely the best episode so far. So here's the deal. I kind of knew walking into this episode that there was probably going to be sexual assault. The only reason I knew that is that, one, and this is full disclosure going into this discussion, I myself am a victim of sexual assault. And so, or I've had it happen. Years and years ago, so it's not anything fresh, although if you've ever been a victim of such events, it doesn't leave, it stays with you wherever you go. And so usually if there is content that involves SA, then usually I have more to say about it. But just based off of that. However, here's the thing. You don't have to, I know people that comment on YouTube and in the Discord and stuff, they want to try to give content creators a heads up, and some content creators like that. You don't have to do that with me, because like I say from the start, I'd rather go in being surprised and then being able to genuinely talk about the discussion. Which the good thing is, someone on Discord, they were like, hey, just so you know that there is a content warning coming up in the next episode. They didn't say what the content warning was, but I'm like, why else would you be telling me about a content warning unless, knowing me, you knew it was going to be sexual assault? But in hindsight, the show comes up and tells you right off the bat that it's going to be sexual assault. So, but I knew going into this that was going to be in the context. I had a feeling it was going to be with Angel Dust, because they're the character that is tied to porn. And, you know, in the porn industry, there is ripe for sexual assault happening all the time. And so this episode's very interesting. It's definitely the best episode of the series so far, and I really liked it. Angel Dust has always been one of my favorite characters, and I think there's so much potential with their character, especially, I think there's so much potential with their character because of their background and because of their time at the hotel. This episode is definitely the strongest so far, and the themes of it, there's some parts of it that are hit and miss for me, and we'll talk about it. There's some parts that are really probably the strongest in the show so far, and then some that I'm like, I don't know exactly what the show's trying to do, but we'll talk about that as we get to it. Because the show has been unapologetic so far in its content. And here, they kind of go an interesting route. And I think they're going that route because of the content and because they have to tread very lightly, right? Very lightly based on what it is. So, I do think the subtitles are so spoilery because the subtitles were like, oh, porn actor gangster in the opening scene. So if you're watching with the subtitles, you instantly know that the opening scene is a shoot. It's just filming, so it's not real technically. And so I wish that they had just said like gangster instead of porn actor, and I think that would have made that payoff a little bit better going into the opening scene when you realize, oh, it's actually not real, it's film. But I think everyone's reaction to Angel Dust's like scene is very on point with their characters. Nifty's the only one that's into it because Nifty is into some freaky stuff. Serpentious and Charlie, being the innocent souls that they are in hell, are just kind of grossed out by it. I love that Serpentious's hat has like the concerned eyebrow raise. I love that they put that little tiny detail. That was really, really good. And then Vaggie's just disgusted. She's just like, what the fudge? Like, why are we doing this? And Husker, of course, is the bartender that sees through everyone's bullshit and is able to observe and analyze the characters, which I liked Husker a lot in the pilot. I think I like Husker a little bit more in this version because he gets his character expanded upon. And then, of course, I loved Angel Dust in the pilot as well. And I like that we're seeing Angel Dust's character expanded on. I am Charlie. I would be Charlie in this world, 100%. Charlie's vibe, everything about her is me, which I really like. So what I like about Husker and Angel Dust's relationship, I was rooting for them from day one, back in the pilot that Angel Dust and Husker were together. But what I love is that Husker does not care at all about Angel Dust's physical appearance or their sexuality. Like to Husker, that doesn't matter. And this episode makes it very clear that Angel Dust has become consumed with this life of being used and abused because they don't know where else they can find self-worth. So from going to hell and being forced to live this existence, he's like, well, this is all I'm good for. And this was all I was good for maybe in his human life. That is one thing I wish we could have seen is I wish we could see the human lives of these characters. I mean, Charlie was born in hell, so... And I have a theory that Vaggie is a former angel, so she, of course, wouldn't have a human life. But like Nifty and Husker and Angel Dust and Serpentious, I wish we could see some of their human selves, like what they were doing before they came to hell, and like how that's influenced the decisions they've made now that they're here in hell and they don't think that there's any redemption for them. What do they do with that? And I feel like the pilot kind of expected that to be shown off, but here... I don't want to say it's watered down in any way. I don't want to say that necessarily, but I feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity to expand on like what, because I was waiting in this when we saw the contract and we saw Angel and we realized his name was Anthony when he was a human, and when he came to hell, the first thing he seemed to have done was sign this contract with Valentino and then got involved because he's like, oh, well, this is my way of making money. This was his way of finding security in hell to where he wasn't, tortured or, any worse. He's like, oh, you can have control of your life by being this porn star for me, sign your life away to me, but I'll keep you safe. I'll keep you secure. It's that very stereotypical abusive behavior of someone that's abusive towards someone. They want to be in that position of power and they exercise that power against Angel Dust. And Angel Dust, who doesn't have the self-worth, goes along with it because he thinks that's the only option. And so there's this conflict now that Angel Dust is at the hotel. He's seeing that there's a possibility of, oh, you mean I can have self-worth outside of what Valentino has held me on a leash with? And I love the idea of the red smoke becoming the chains around him. Like visually, this episode was gorgeous. Visually, this is the best animated episode. The symbolism with the visuals, all of that was beautiful and well done. I had just wished that when we got that little detail about Anthony that we could during Angel Dust song, he could have tied back to his human life and how it transitioned him into hell and led to these decisions that he's made. And it's implied. It would have just been nice to see it a little bit more expanded upon. And I know they only have 8 episodes. Maybe they'll do it in future seasons, but that would have been cool to see, especially since you had the opportunity now. But I love Husker. Keith David does such a good job voicing Husker. And can we talk about Angel Dust's voice actor? Can we talk about him? Blake Roman. Blake Roman was so good as Angel Dust in this episode. The voice acting with Angel Dust, the vulnerability in his voice, the vulnerability in his singing, the transition, it was so natural, but it was so powerful. Like, you could feel the emotion in Angel Dust voice acting. Like, I will probably rewatch this episode just for the scenes of Angel Dust, just to listen to that voice acting and how amazing it is. Also, I realize I've paused this now where Husker's starting to talk about the interrogation scene, and Charlie and Vaggie and Angel Dust look over to Husker. Nifty is still watching the screen like she's so enthralled by the porn, and Sir Pentious is watching like, I don't know what to do with this, but I can't look away. It's like a car crash. Like, sadly, his innocence has been forsaken. But Husker is so good for Angel Dust because he doesn't care about Angel Dust being the porn star. He doesn't care about the persona and the fake actor, like, facade that Angel Dust puts on. Husker's like, I just care about you as a person. And care about's a strong word. They're all in hell, let's be real. But he at least looks past that and he values Angel Dust for more than just being the porn star. And I think that Angel Dust never had that in their human existence. So the idea that somebody calls them out on their bullshit and is like, why don't you just be real with us and be yourself? Why do you got to be this fake, like, treating it like it's great when clearly you hate it? Like, just be yourself and quit being phony. Like, I don't think Angel Dust has ever been called out for that. So it's kind of like unnerving to him at first to be like, well, what do you mean? I'm not faking it. And it's like, yeah, and there's the double entendre of him faking it, tied to his work and tied to his personality. Yeah. But I love that he pretty much pins down everybody. He's like, Sir Pentious is an insecure buffoon whose lonely ass watches y'all sleep. And they're like, really? I like the Vaggie's like, watching us sleep, huh? And he's like, no, it's innocent, I swear. And then he's talking about Charlie as a bleeding heart princess who can solve everybody's problem but her own. And I love, she's like, what? No, stop me. My daddy issues? What are you talking about? When it's clearly the case. And then Vaggie's whole thing is that she judges everyone because she hates herself, which is true. We've seen that. Nifty, I like that she's just like, go ahead, tell them what my problems are. And Husker's like, we ain't gonna even talk about this bitch. She's crazy. We're not gonna get into it. And then he's like, yeah, your deal is that I see right through all of your bullshit and how fake you are. But yeah, Angel Dust has all this insecurity because they really aren't secure at all. And here's my thing. My only qualm with the episode is the way, and I know that they're obviously portraying SA as something negative and something horrible, which is good because I want them to portray it as something horrible, as they should, right? As they should. It's very complicated because you have in this series, they're in hell. They are literally in the depths of hell where they are being punished for their sins as humans. That's the whole point. And Charlie's whole hotel is to try to redeem them from those sins so that they can go to heaven. Whether or not that's successful or ideal or even the better scenario is there. And this is so complicated to say. I'm trying to find the way to word it correctly. What I do love about this episode is a criticism that I have of another series, and the criticism I have of the other series that I'm currently watching on the channel is that series portrays a lot of sexual assault, but it doesn't portray it. The way that it portrays it is very exploitation, and you don't get it from the victim's perspective. So it just seems like exploitation and we're just looking at it, and it's very voyeuristic. And the problem is you don't get the victim's perspective, and the victim doesn't have any agency. What I like about this show is that Angel Dust as a victim ends up having agency. And I like that. That's really good. The problem is that everything else in this world is played up as a joke or cool or a good thing. But then there's this tonal dissonance where it's like, yeah, this is bad, but so is everything else, right? So when they counter the essay with them murdering all of the other people and their blood, and they're like, haha, blood and guts and everything. I'm like, well, that's bad too. So, and they're in hell. So it's kind of like, I don't know. There is a weird tonal dissonance, and I feel like there's a way to do it, and they do it properly. I think it's like 95% there, 95% there. There's just something off about it, and I can't put my finger on it exactly. And so I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in. I think that the way they handle the sexual assault and showing how bad it is very well done. It was very uncomfortable, as it's supposed to be. It's portrayed as very uncomfortable. I guess maybe, as I'm trying to work through it, I guess from the moment Angel Dust gets on the phone, you instantly know he's going to get assaulted when he goes to the workplace. And maybe that's point one. I feel like maybe it should have come off as Angel Dust doesn't think anything about it. It's not as obvious what's about to happen to the audience. He's just like, okay, I got to go to work. Bye. And then when you get there, if Charlie had shown up and then saw for herself how bad it was and is like, oh, ooh, this is actually not good. Are you okay with this, Angel Dust? And then we slowly get that reveal that he's not okay with it. It's very on the nose, maybe is the way I'm trying to word it, is that the moment the Angel Dust gets the call, it's like, he's going to get assaulted as soon as he goes to work. Like, that's immediately, there's no lead up to it. It's very apparent. And there's pros and cons of it. I'm not saying it's done wrong. I would have liked for it to be a little bit more subtle and a little bit more like, because it's like, you're in hell. What do you think's going to happen? And then you get there, and I think if it had just been shown to be like a little bit more like, once you get there and see, oh, this is uncomfortable and not good, I feel like the show is trying to prep you for what's coming, which on the one hand, cool, but you did that at the beginning of the episode with the warning, and also they're in hell, so it's like, I don't know if I'm wording it correctly, but we'll go on there. I like that, again, Angel Dust is trying to put up a barrier and keep Charlie out of it. And I do like that Vaggie says, you should be aggressively kind. It's not wrong to show your authority. I do agree with Vaggie to an extent where she's like, I like that you're not a power-hungry bitch. That's great, because there's so many of these in hell. We don't need another one, especially one that has legit authority, because your dad's Lucifer. But I do like that she's like, you could use some of that authority. It's fine. I really kind of, on the one hand, expected her to use her authority more, but I like that this episode lets it be in Angel Dust's hands with Husker's help. That Angel Dust is able to fight their own battles. I do like that, because one thing is, if you are a victim of SA, there is a sense of powerlessness in a sense that you're not in control and that you don't have your own agency. And one thing that I think this episode does very, very well, especially in comparison to other series, is that it doesn't make Charlie Angel Dust's savior. It doesn't make him being saved by somebody else. Husker helps him, and Husker's like, hey, we're all kind of in the same boat here, literally. It's okay to confide in me and be yourself around me. I'm not going to judge you. And so at the end of the day, Husker is there as support, but he's like the Tuxedo Mask to Angel Dust Sailor Moon. He shows up, throws a rose in the drink that's spiked with the drug, and he's there to be like, I'm going to be here if you need me. But at the same time, he's not like fighting off the villains for him. Like, Angel Dust ends up fighting off and getting rid of the mobsters to save Husker. So I do really love that the show gives Angel Dust his own agency here, and at the end of the day, he saves himself. I love that. That is bar none the best thing about the way that they handle the subject matter in this, is by letting him have the agency to help himself. As somebody that's a victim of that, it's very empowering to see. It's happening in hell. So we'll get it. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about this even more. But the animation and everything in this entire episode is so good. Valentino is such a slime bag, the douchiest of douches, just the worst. And they clearly, Angel Dust clearly isn't comfortable with everything happening to them, but because they've signed them away to this, they're like, well, I'm just gonna perform, make the most of it, because they don't think that there's any other options for them out there. But what I love that this scene does is the moment that Charlie shows up to work, it's like the facade is instantly gone. The facade is gone, and Angel Dust is instantly reminded of how just ridiculous this all is, because you have somebody that's normal showing up that's outside of that world, and she's looking in going, this is kind of messed up, and that ruins the facade and reveals the illusions taken away, just how messed up it actually is, right? Now, Joel Perez, who does Valentino's voice, also gets a nod, because Joel Perez as Valentino, you could just the malice and evil oozing off of him was so well done as well. And their foil to Angel Dust throughout their scene together was just, you could just feel how uncomfortable it all was throughout this moment. But Angel Dust trying to quickly get Charlie out of there. I guess that is my point here of, we obviously want Angel Dust to feel like a victim. We want Angel Dust to feel like there's someone in trouble. But again, we're in hell. So of course they're all in trouble. They're in hell. I don't know if I wanted it to be more subtle, but I feel like it is very on the nose, but it needs to be. And I shouldn't complain about that, because it needs to be on the nose. And all of the gestures that Valentino keeps making back to Angel Dust, being like, when she leaves, we're going to have a talk. I mean, if you know anybody or have been in an abusive relationship, this is it 101, right? I've seen it done much more subtly, but I've also seen it done much less effectively. So I guess it's like your give and take. You don't get it subtle at all. It's going to be very in your face, but the way they handle it is appropriate for the subject matter that it is. It seems there. And also, I feel like, I want to nitpick it because it's not subtle. And if you've been someone that's experienced it, then, you see it coming a mile away. But I feel like, as someone that maybe hasn't experienced this or are not as familiar with sexual assault and what it looks like, then it's just weird to me, I guess, that I think I know what I'm trying to say. It's weird to me that Hazbin Hotel is being used as a PSA for all of these things. Like, it is weird to me, because the pilot makes it seem like here's this like raunchy show about demons and everything. And it's just, I'm trying to find out, it's like trying to have a heart, which, yeah, sure. That's fine. It's just so bizarre to me that we're going to use this series where everybody says fuck every 5 minutes to be a PSA against SA, which is fine. That's great. It's just so bizarre to me. And they're just like, they talk about boundaries in this episode. And I'm like, you bitches are in hell. Why are we having to talk about boundaries? It tries to be Sesame Street for a hot second, like adult Sesame Street. And I'm like, okay, sure, it's fine. It's just kind of the tonal dissonance for me it's a little jarring. I definitely think that having the conversation about SA in this episode is needed, and I like it. I don't want to say it's juvenile. It's hard to describe. It is a little on the nose and kind of like Saturday morning cartoon PSA in a way. But on the other hand, in that regard, I'm like, I would have liked it to be a little bit more adult in how it gets the message across, because I'm like, you're supposed to be over 18 watching this. But on the other hand, I do appreciate the message that it gives and the way that it presents it. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, I guess. It didn't hit 100 for me, but I really appreciate what the show is trying to do, and I appreciate that it takes a character like Angel Dust and gives them their own agency and lets them kind of get out of their own mess. And it makes me want to root for them to get away from Valentino. It makes me want to root for them being like, well, I don't know how you're going to get out of this, unbinding contract unless you get Alistair to help you, and Alistair ain't going to help you unless he gets something in return. So maybe you and Husker can get on the same contract with Alistair. At least Alistair ain't going to try to have sexual relations with you because Alistair's ace. He'll just be like, yeah, help him do my bidding. Husker definitely got the better deal of having Alistair as the person he owes his soul to, because Alistair doesn't seem to give a shit about anybody else but himself. And if you're in his way, he's just going to put you under contract so he can like shove you aside and be like, go serve booze over here. I don't know. Do whatever you want. Just get out of my way. So Alistair's a self-made man. But yeah, so I do think that there is the possibility from this episode that Charlie is going to be able to have more agency and she's going to be able to exert her power, because it seems like all these demons, at the end of the day, they don't want to mess with Lucifer. So they kind of go along with her because she wrecks the set and everything. They go along with her just because she's Lucifer's daughter, and they're just like, we don't want to get him involved, so whatever. But that shot where there was the fire and Angel Dust looks over in the flames and sees Valentino just sitting there, that part was very real and very scary, and I thought it was executed very, very well. Did a good job there. Also, Valentino having the giant furry moth wings. Everybody being furry despite being a spider or a reptile is very interestingly done. But yeah, the moment that Angel Dust gets back to the room, on the one hand, you knew this was coming, and so it doesn't make it any better, but you knew they were in hell, so it's like, what did you expect? Did you expect Valentino to be nice? And maybe that's something else too with all of it, is that none of these characters you expect to be kind. None of these characters you expect to be nice. That's why Charlie's such an outlier, because she genuinely is kind, and you're like, wait, you were born here in the center of all this madness and you're like a nice, decent person? What? But you don't expect any of these other characters to be kind. So I think that is part of a little bit of a detriment to the message, is because normally when SA happens, it's with people you don't expect. Like, somebody could watch this episode and be like, well, Angel Dust signed up to be a porn star, and he's in hell, and he signed up under this guy that's clearly known for this sort of thing. So what did you expect? Right? And I could see if somebody was watching this, they could say, well, the fault is on Angel Dust because they're doing this profession and this business, and they should have known when they were getting into it what was going to be expected of them. Now, that's what I think someone could argue. Do I agree with that? No, I don't think this is appropriate no matter what you do. I don't think the SA is under any circumstance justified at all. And I think that that's, part of it's. So I seesaw back and forth on it, because on the one hand, I'm like, yes, you should be showing this message that no matter what situation a character is in, even if they seem like they signed up for it, they didn't. It's still wrong. They shouldn't have to go through this. It's not correct. But on the other hand, I'm kind of like, when a character, you already know they're an asshole, I'm not surprised, I guess is my point. I'm not surprised Valentino is like this. There's nothing surprising about that. I feel like the other series I'm watching that features SA, when it happens, it is kind of surprising, and you're like, oh, why is this happening? Who is this? And I think that it can be more effective in that sense because it's something unexpected. The source is unexpected, and it brings to light the fact that this happens under circumstances that most people don't even think about. But on the other hand, I think that this series does a better job of showing that it's still not acceptable, and it's still uncomfortable, and it's still not good. I'm kind of all over the place with what I think is basically the thesis of this. I think there are parts that are really done well with it. I think there are parts that could have been done better. It's like, it's got me to third base. It's not a home run, but it got me to third base, and then it managed to get me home. So it wasn't a home run, but it managed to score a run out of it, I guess is the best way to put it. I think the best part is the first song is better than the second song. I think that the song with Valentino talking to him, or at least the part where he's like, she can't help you. You signed your life away. And you see this whole thing about Valentino at the end. It says Anthony. That part where we get to see like him showing Valentino, you chose this. And of course the Anthony is like Angel Dust. And him saying like, you do that whole monologue that Valentino has, the monologue that Valentino has with Angel Dust is the best part of the episode. It's so effective. It's powerful. It's emotional. It makes you feel so much empathy for Angel Dust, and you want the best for him at that point, and it makes you hate Valentino so much. It's the best part of the episode. Bar none. It's the best part of the series so far, I think. It's been the most powerful part of the series so far, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, the song that Angel Dust sings about after he makes Charlie leave, which is a really sad scene, but you kind of, it's going to happen. It's like, I've seen that whole idea of just, there's a little bit of cliche things in this episode. They've been like, you need to leave. Like, Angel Dust makes it go really well, and it works. But the whole song about poison, I think the Angel Dust does a really good job of it. The visuals in the Poison song are so, like, they're so sexual, but they're cartoons, so it's kind of unexpected, but it's really well done. This is kind of the part where I wish we'd had more of Angel in their human form and kind of could have traced them going to hell and getting involved. I wish that we'd had, like, as much as I like the dance music and the Lady Gaga-esque outfits that Angel Dust wears throughout all of this, I wish we could have, like, used it as a song that was a flashback leading him to this point, and we could have seen, like, him from the moment he was human, I'm assuming doing similar things in his human form, to dying, going to hell, signing the contract. I wish we could have seen, like, a montage of a flashback done in this song leading up to the present. That, I think, would have been cooler for me, but maybe they're saving something like that for the future. I don't know, right? But yeah, it just, all the choreography, the detail of the song is really well done. The back and forth between Angel and Valentino and the others, where he's, like, straddling them or doing whatever, it's all done really, 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 really well. And Blake Roman, who's Angel Dust, can sing very, very well too. But yeah, Poison is probably the best song so far in the series for me. I think it's the one I like the most. It has the most emotional power to it. It's the best. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, he ends up going back, talking to Husker. Husker tries to point out the obvious, and then Angel just gets really fed up, and Husker's not giving him any slack, and then he goes off and leaves again. One thing also, too, that I like about this series that I have qualms with the other series I'm reading is that this series does not shy away from the fact that sexual assault doesn't just happen to women. It happens to men as well, or even male presenting, because regardless of Angel Dust's, like, sexual preference, he's called him in the series, so he's obviously male presenting. And the fact of the matter is that sexual assault is not just something that happens to women. It happens to men, happens to people that are non-binary, happens to people regardless of preference or gender. So I think it's very powerful of the show to illustrate that it can happen to anyone, and that it's important to note that. But I think that's well done with the show. Now, Husker has that moment with Angel Dust, and Angel Dust, like, says, well, you couldn't handle somebody like me. And Husker's like, I don't need somebody like you. I'm not interested. And I think that I like that Angel Dust, like, little freckles on his face open up in her eyes, because he's a spider. We forget that. And so he, like, opens up the eyes and everything. And Husker's like, look, I'm not here for that. And that's not usually what Angel Dust is used to hearing. He's not used to people turning him down. He's used to being used. And that's kind of the only way he's assumed his power. It reminds me of, there's a series called Twittering Birds Never Fly. There's a series called Twittering Bird Never Fly. It's a BL yaoi series that I watch. It's, like, about Yakuza or Japanese mobsters. And without spoiling much, one of the main characters, his name is Yashiro, and he is part of a Yakuza gang, and he's someone who has been sexually violated from a young age, and it's traumatized him, but left him in a position where he only finds power through sex acts, through his sexuality. That's the only way he asserts power, is kind of like trying to reclaim what was taken from him. And it's a really well done series, but his character reminds me a lot of Angel Dust, in that they're trying to use sex as a power move to kind of give themselves power where otherwise they feel completely helpless. And then there's a character that's kind of like Husker in that series that's like, look, I don't necessarily want what you originally have. I'd rather get to know you and develop this relationship. And Yashiro, much like Angel Dust, just doesn't know what to do with someone like that. So I'm glad that Vaggie sends Husker to go after Angel Dust. I'm really glad that ends up happening. I'm like, Vaggie's like, look, Charlie and I ain't interested in Angel Dust, so you go on. You're the only one that has shipping potential with him. And, Serpentius doesn't know of Angel Dust or would stand up against the mobsters for Angel Dust, right? And I like that Husker at first is just trying to sit there and not get involved. He's just making sure that Angel Dust doesn't do anything stupid. But then he spots the one guy trying to like drug his drink. And again, they're in hell. Of course they're going to try to drug his drink, right? I'm surprised they don't do that every time. And Angel just kind of says as much. He's like, I'm used to it. I also like the Husker's attacks are based on the cards, based on his gambling. He does the attacks with the cards. That part's really clever. I thought that part was done. And the dice that explode, that's really done too. I think my second favorite scene is the monologue between the two of them outside of the bar, where Angel Dust is like, look, this is who I am. I'm in hell. Of course I'm letting them use them. I'm not asking for anybody to save me. I know the consequences of my actions. I've accepted that's my fate here in hell. Why are you trying to save me? And Husker's like, well, I just don't want you to be a bullshit version of yourself. He's like, you don't have to act. And then Angel, of course, is like, this isn't an act. This is my escape. This is where I can forget it all and where I can have some sense of my own power. And I don't have to think about how much it hurts. And then he says, he gets down to the nitty gritty of it. He's like, if I can ruin myself enough, then Valentino will leave me alone and I won't be his favorite toy anymore. And that's kind of the thing is that Angel Dust is like, I know that Valentino's using me because of how good I am. So if I just spiral and I'm not good anymore, then he'll leave me alone and he'll let me go. And that's such a classic, like, abusive strategy where a person's like, if they're in an abusive relationship, they're like, if I just break down enough, maybe they'll go away and find somebody new that's better and leave me be. But then, of course, the process and the product is you're completely destroyed in the process and you can't rebuild yourself back up. So it's a really horrible moment. And when Angel just like wraps himself around his little legs, it's so sad. I'm like, damn it. But yeah. And Husker's like, okay. He's like, look. He's like, I was an overlord once, so I was in charge of people's lives, kind of like Valentino, although clearly did not seem worse. And he's like, it was nice to have that power, but when you deal with souls, the stakes are high. And I love that he kept going through the cards, but then he played against Alistair, and I love seeing that shot of when he's like, you turn to anything and even make deals yourself. I love that it shows him wagering and it shows him as the overlord. Like he has the nice suit and everything and looks more like an overlord. But then Alistair's like, actually, can I be the overlord instead? So it seems like Alistair got his overlordship from Husker by making a deal and winning the card game. Mm-hmm. And it's that idea of there's always just going to be somebody stronger than you. And that's who Husker met. And so now he's in Alistair's debt. I feel like Alistair's just walking around gathering up people to use like Pokemon and being like, whenever I want to use you, that's fine. Oh, the radio demon. I really like that shot though. That one's really good. The second song is cute. It's cutesy. It's fine. My only qualm with it, other than it being kind of like a cutesy little duet, which is, it reminds me somewhat of like Aladdin or something for some reason, like Aladdin 2. Like a duet that's in Aladdin 2. I think, yeah, there is a song with like maybe Genie and Iago that's in that movie it reminded me of. The only thing is, and this can kind of be to the show's detriment, I know the show is in hell trying to be edgy, but there is like a moment rhetorically where using the curse words too much, you don't have to do that. I mean, we understand that they're in hell, but like this song said like fucking shit and all this and bitch. Like at some point it starts like the newness wears off and it starts to desensitize. I feel like when Alistair and Vox had their song, Vox would rely upon the cursing and stuff, but Alistair's like, I don't have to do that and you'll still get the malice. And it's like, yeah. So you can find a way to be sinister without having to curse. And I think that can be the show's detriment sometimes, is that they curse so much that it just starts to lose its power and starts to lose its like meaning. So you've got to be careful with that. And I think that sometimes there are a couple lines though in the show, like talking about him being a power bottom that's hit rock bottom. That part was fun. And then talking about how they're both basically the same, and them both having like misery and company. And he's like, I sold my soul and you think that makes you unique. He's like, yeah, you're in hell. Everyone's got this problem. It's okay. But them both being like, yeah, we're not alone. I do like the idea that Husker says, I sold my soul to save my power. And so his things that go with him is talking about how he's a low roller, a loser, he's broke, he's a sellout, he's a fraud, a swindler, no balls, a cheat. And then he's like, I'm on a demon's leash, like him talking about. I like the representation of the leashes though, like the one around Angel Dust is all like twisted and loose and messy because that's Valentino, and the one around Husker is very neat and concise because that's Alistair. So I like visually how both of those are done. But yeah. And then they end up, but then, he's like, oh, we could eat shit together. Things will end up differently, which it's like, oh, no more self-loathing. And then, as much as I like this song and what it represents, I'm also like, at the same time, then they just murder these guys. Something that I would like to see is, since the hotel is tied to saving people, if Husker and Angel Dust would tie back to that, but they don't seem to be doing that yet. So I don't know if that's going to be a part of it. I'm not sure. I do really appreciate when they go back, and poor Charlie, she's writing like all the apology letters. What do they say on the desk? Like, I wanted to see what was on the desk there. She had like all of these. She's like, really? She's like, and boundaries. I was like, girl, you're in hell. This conversation about boundaries is cute and all, but we just watched them murder a bunch of people. The boundaries conversation is a little bit weird to me. I mean, I get that it's about SA being wrong, which I completely agree with 1,000 times over, but I'm like, Charlie doesn't need to give an apology about boundaries. She's fine. She didn't do anything. But then I guess Angel apologized to her and she has her cute little face. Yeah. It's like they do try to make it a little cutesy sometimes. And I'm like, this is a show about hell. Let's not get away from that too much. But I don't know. It was a good episode. It kind of went ahead and went through the credits before I could finish them. But yeah, I definitely, this episode is so good. It's the best in the series so far. I'm sorry if I can't articulate the things about it that I would change. I guess overall, I'm very happy with how they gave Angel Dust agency. I'm happy with the way that they went about talking about it. It just was maybe on the nose for me, but if it's trying to reach an audience that has never read or watched anything that involves sexual assault before, then fine. It's just, it's weird to think that this show might be someone's first encounter with that rhetoric. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know if this is the best place to have it, but okay. But I am glad the way that they tackled this issue. They tackled this issue with more agency and in a more positive way than another show that I'm watching that it happens literally like every week, and it's so frustrating. And this has been kind of a breath of fresh air. It's just the execution of it that is, it's like, I'd give it an A-. There we go. I'd give it an A-. Is it an A+? No. Are there little nitpicks that I would give it? Yes. But overall, I give it an A- in the way that it presents itself. And I think overall, I like the Angel Dust has the agency and the ability to take action themselves. That's fine. But you all don't have to give me, after seeing this episode, I'm like, you don't have to give me content warnings for future episodes because the show is going to do that itself. But I hope this made sense. I liked the episode. It's the best one so far. I feel so nitpicky, but I did really like it. And Blake Roman's voice and the actor that plays Valentino, chef's kiss, beautiful, wonderfully done. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of hard. I'm at that stage in my life where it's been like 12 or 13 years since my incident. And so over the last 5 years, I've just gotten to where I can talk about it more. And I think it's important to talk about it because you want to give awareness that it exists and that it is a problem. So I don't ever mind talking about issues like that. I think it's important to address them, to make it known that it happens and it's not cool. So, and if Angel Dust's story convinces people that it's not cool, good. That would be great, because it painting Valentino as this disgusting monster, good. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back even sooner to talk about episode 5 of Hazbin Hotel. Bye!